Hey, welcome to this episode of the Doggin Show. I'm so glad I added music to that intro video. I tell you, it changes everything, doesn't it,
It
Melina?
does. It does.
Dude,
Takes
you're
the
just
emphasis away
like
from the photos.
it's so brutal the stuff I gotta go and fade here with Joey. Everything he does, he can do no wrong. You know,
Well,
he can just
you
do no
create a
wrong.
video and it's like halfway. You don't even put music on it. I mean, I'll give you credit. You did put my picture first, which I'm thankful about.
I had to. I would have
So
never heard the end of it. I would have
I
never heard the
appreciate
end of
you.
it. Yeah.
I appreciate you, but I had to add that music. And man, when I hear that, it just gets me fired up.
Yeah.
And I'm really fired up for this one because we're coming off the heels of the Whirlpool Masters. And, what better way to talk about it than to bring in the man, Karl Boys himself. So let's bring him in here. How's it going, Karl?
Good, thank you. How are you guys?
We're good. We're good. Hey,
We
you
need,
were out there.
we need some energy. We need some energy. Do we got to replay the music? Yeah.
Tired.
Let's reset.
Yeah.
Well, Karl, you were there in person. We're watching it on TV, we're watching it on apps and stuff, but you're there in person. So why don't you take us through just your thoughts on the whole event, how it went from start to finish, and any impressions you had of it.
Yeah, I thought it was a good event, all in all. Obviously, it was back down to 16 players. Longer races, which I think obviously everyone involved in pool, especially the players, they sort of want that, don't they? We want to see, obviously, more pool. So that gives the professionals a chance to maybe come back if things are not going their way. Obviously, the crowd, we sort of knew it weren't going to be very good early on, but for the last day, it wasn't too bad. Still not loads of people there, but it was pretty decent atmosphere on the last day. But I'm just glad that the sort of second half of the Masters, we had a lot of close matches, so it was a lot of good drama, I thought.
Yeah, there were some great matches, great close matches. I want to touch real quickly on what you said about the crowd. And that is, it's always surprised me with the events in the UK. This is live on Sky Sports in the UK, correct? Right?
Yep.
And you're in Brentwood, which is an hour from London, from downtown. And I would think over the course of a couple days, there would be enough people turning it on live to say, hey, I'll just pop down there and check this out. Why don't the English sporting fans, gambling fans, why don't they embrace it more? What's your thoughts?
I think there was a few people that did that because I spoke to a few people. There was some people there where they literally didn't have a clue what was going on. Obviously, they seen me at the side of the table, sort of doing the studio stuff. So I went to there's a cafe bar. So I went to get a coffee and I spoke to probably 5 or 6 guys who had took their kids, like the son or the daughter, and they was like, oh, so what is this? They didn't know who I was or anything. They were just like, oh yeah, we've come down to see what what this is about. So I was having a conversation about I even touched on the Moscone Cup. They didn't even have a clue what the Moscone Cup was.
Yeah.
So I think it did happen, but obviously it didn't happen in the thousands, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But obviously you're coming off the back of the World Snooker Championships. Obviously in England, snooker's obviously got so much history and people love it. Every session for 17 days seems to sell out at the Crucible day and night.
Yeah.
And I've been down there. There's obviously such a good vibe. I think obviously moving forward, it's just a case of getting it out there, really, because you know yourself. Obviously, over the years, it's a bit like, what's this pool tournament? What's next? There's no nobody knows what's going on.
Right.
So it seems to me like what the whole point is here is to try and get obviously the World 9-Ball Tour out there, and that's why we keep going on about the rankings, the tour, directing people to websites and all this, to show people that, oh, what is this? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
You obviously
more fans there. I'd love to see more of a, have it grow organically. The Moscone Cup's its own thing. You never have to worry about that. But I'd love to see these other tournaments draw some crowds. And I don't know if they don't really push it much on the broadcast as far as coming down, seeing it live, whatever. But I think curiosity, you hope as it's on the air more, draws more people.
I think it will do. I think when I look back, the first year I played in the Moscone Cup was at York Hall.
Mm-hmm.
2010, there were 300 people there.
Yeah. And I think the tickets were still free.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, 300 people in that venue, it was insane. It felt like 3,000. Do you know what I mean? So it obviously can be done.
Yeah.
Obviously, where you look at the Moscone now to back then, obviously that's grown itself. So you just want to pinch a little bit of that. But I just, obviously I've been in pool a long time. I just think even my closest friends who I might go for a beer with, they're always asking me, oh, what's next? What's this? What's that? You know, there's that much stuff people see online.
Right.
Any pool game, you know what I mean? Pool's not got any identity at all because there's that much different pool going on.
Yeah.
So it's hard to know it's hard to, understand what's going on. So I think the big push from Matchroom is obviously to get a global tour.
Right. Yeah, good point.
You've been playing pool for a long time, Karl. I want to ask you about the break. There was a lot of talk over the week about the golden breaks, and the 9-ball just always seems to be in play the way they're coming off that side rail. What are your thoughts from a player's perspective, and what concerns, if any, did you hear now being a player ambassador for Matchroom?
No players said anything. Obviously, we know it's harsh. But I had a drink with Jeremy on the last night, and all week I was kind of winding Emily up every time there was a golden. I was like looking over, because the player in me, I know it can be brutal. So I said to Emily, I said, listen, I think, which match was it now? I think it was Neil's catcher. It was either Neil's catcher or Mario catcher. It was the match that went hill, right? So I said to Emily, I pulled her to one side, I said, listen, you obviously, the golden break, it is what it is. You like it. I said, but would you like it at 10-10? And she said, no, I wouldn't. I said, well, this is the whole point then, isn't it? You're keeping it in, but at 10-10, everyone's sort of, I'm in the comms like this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then when I don't see it going, I think, oh, okay. And obviously I'm hoping some sort of ball goes tied up so the other guy gets out of his chair and all this. But come the end of the event, I sort of changed my mind on it a little bit. From a non-pool player perspective, I thought there was a couple of golden breaks in certain matches that kind of turned it on its head. And I thought, well, it's actually, I think it was Ko and Aranis. Did Ko get one near the end? I think
he did. He did.
Or to get to 9-9, I think.
Yeah. So if it's like 10-6, 10-7, and the guy on 7 gets a golden, all of a sudden you're getting what you want to get as a pool fan. We all want to see it go 10-9, 10-10, don't we?
Yeah.
Because we want to see someone dogging it. No, I know the show's called that.
Some good brand identity.
We appreciate you, buddy, for the one. Yeah.
Yeah, but you want to see someone dogging it, don't you? You want to see someone like go for the ringer. I mean, Catcher, who shows up late to matches, who looks like he don't really give a shit. Even he was like, and all this, you know what I mean? So you're actually physically seeing it there.
Yeah.
So I'm still a little bit on the fence with it, but come the end of the event and speaking to Jeremy, on the last night, he said, you got to leave the golden in. This is what's going to create drama. But what he suggested to me, which I thought was a great point, I think the players have got to stop apologising. I'd like to see a player, and this is what JJ said, so this is not my idea, but I'm fully on board with it. He said, we got to get the players to start like, not so much cheering, but just like give it one of them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why is everyone apologizing? Because you're not really sorry.
I thought about
Karl.
I thought about that last night, and I'm like, you know what? That's 100% right. You don't see that in other sports, really. Like over here, we have a game called baseball. I don't know if you've heard of it, but pitchers will.
Yeah, we call it rounders over there.
Pitchers will throw a ball 95 miles per hour and hit a guy in the head, and they don't apologize. It's just part of the game.
Well, there you go.
And
so
here, somebody shoots a shot, misses it, and the other player ends up safe, and it's like, oh, sorry. I kind of want to see a little more on the other side of that. Like, yeah, take that. You know.
I 100% agree. I think so. I said to JJ, I said, well, first of all, we need to speak to Jason Shaw because he's the man to give it the other guy, right? So, if he makes a golden, obviously, if there's 3 people sat there, it's hard to do it.
Right.
But if you get 100 people in an arena or certainly the latter stages events where there is a crowd, it'll come off good. And then maybe even like, at darts, if you've seen darts, when they get a 1-8, everyone's holding up the banners.
Yeah.
I don't know, you could have a golden flag or something. Yeah. There's a lot of ways this could sort of go.
Yeah.
So at the beginning, I was a bit like, this is getting a bit silly. But I think it was just like, obviously, Max getting 3 and all that.
Right.
it's just a freak of nature. I just think that probably won't happen again the way it did.
Yeah.
And that's
Well, it
what Matt
always
said afterwards is, you
it
know,
did.
how often do you see something like that happen? It just doesn't, you know, it's kind of one of those fluky things. And I agree about the not apologizing. You know, I don't mind when they kind of semi-apologize if they miss a shot by a diamond and a half and end up hooking you. You know,
Yeah.
then the little hand wave is fine. But you make the 9 on the break. I mean, I think the guy should start screaming when the 9 ball's rolling toward the pocket. I mean, I think it
Yeah.
should develop
Yeah,
some
exactly.
excitement. The
Well,
thing,
they
I
would in
think
Moscone, you know?
yeah, for sure, 100%.
yeah,
And that's
that's what I
the
was
whole
just
thing
gonna.
about having a
Yeah,
crowd there and having to build up what Karl was saying. You know, if it's an empty arena, you know, you're not going to do that big dance. But with a big crowd, yeah, make everybody excited. That's what's going to draw the guy from the TV to the arena.
yeah, exactly. And I think obviously, like the player in me, he's obviously a bit more. This is harsh, but at the same time, you know, it's a different sort of world now, and I just think, well, I think JJ's got a good point. Maybe try and get the players to do a bit more like no apologising,
Yeah.
giving it the fist and all this. And then obviously if the crowds are there, so obviously at the Moscone where you know you got a guaranteed really good crowd, is this some sort of gimmick at the end of the day?
Well, isn't it towards the bigger picture of just these guys having more personality and getting more, you know, fans involved? It reminds me of like the Josh effect because, you know, Josh is hated here in the States, you know, for at least a month out of the year, every single year because of how he acts at the Moscone Cup. And then you see him at other events and he's, you know, the guy that we all know that he is, you know, outside of you know, that rivalry. But I think if you have more things like that or more personality like that, it'll create these like pseudo rivalries within the game that I feel like it needs, you know?
Yeah, I fully agree. It's a bit like the snooker. The guy who just won the snooker, Luca Bracel. Obviously, all the snooker players are all wearing tuxedos, so they all look the same. You all think they're the same, but he's just bought like a red Ferrari and he's driving around in designer gear, drinking beer. But you're not really getting to see that.
Yeah. Well, you will if you follow him on
It's where
Instagram.
if you follow on Instagram. But I think obviously like with pool players, the fact that you can sort of wear your own clothing and obviously Emily doesn't, you know, she's not saying everyone wear black trousers with black shoes. You know, she's letting Shane wear all his designer trainers as long as they're not running trainers. So I just think, yeah, I mean, this is what you want.
Yeah.
You know, get to show who the people really are. But I think you know, golden breaks or whatever races and all this and break boxes, it's still early days, isn't it? So it's not a case of we're all just sat there watching. After every match or certain racks, me and JJ might have headset off and we're running over here having discussions. Everything's always getting pointed out, you know, constantly.
Yeah. So you did, you know, one thing you and I had talked about was one thing you would change from the Masters is a template over the hand rack, over the wooden rack, correct? And because we talked about that 10-10 Niels Kachi match where, you know, it was kind of on the fence whether Niels just hit it really poorly or got slugged or a combination of both. You know, certainly that was the match where Niels got warned because he was soft breaking. What are
That was the second match he got warned.
Allegedly.
you know, what was your what are your thoughts on that, Karl?
What, him soft breaking?
No, the whole template over the wood rack. I know
Yeah, I mean, I was on the train home yesterday, and I said to Emily, I sent her a message. We was chatting. I said, "You got to bring the template." And I don't really know why it wasn't in, but whatever. It's been in obviously some of your events, but you're just taking the pressure off the referee. Obviously, you're taking the 9 sliding away and all this. And we played. Well, which event was it? Premier League. Did we use template? Yeah, and then I think one of the Open events, and not one single player said a word, because obviously all the referees that we're using. So if there's like 8 referees at an Open event, obviously they're all good enough to rack with a template. So I just think you cut a lot of bullshit out, and it's like, why wouldn't you use the template?
Yeah.
So I think that will come in. I don't know about the Moscone because obviously it's a bit more of a show or it's a bit different. Do we really need it for that? I don't know. I don't know why you wouldn't use it for that or why you would. But I think for the actual tour, and not just the events where we show up to, all the other ranking events that are going to be taking place, I just think imagine if they're not using templates.
Yeah,
I mean,
crazy.
that could just turn it could just turn real silly. So listen, the template's there. I think now the break is what it is. I don't see an issue with using a template at every event.
Yeah. I think the argument was always that that the hand rack allowed for a little more randomness and not as predictable. But when you tighten up the pockets, especially the way the side pockets are now, and you add the break box to it, I think the template that kind of evens out that automatic, one in the side or that type of thing.
But you don't feel it'll get monotonous like we've seen with other disciplines using a template?
Mike is
The
Molina's
players
a
will figure it
huge
out.
fan of
As long as the
hand
balls
racking.
are racked randomly, I mean, then you're not going to get the same layout every time, right?
Well, I just think I think like we was talking the full event. I think 3 players halfway through was breaking like Shane. I think Mario, he, and Catcher. They were all slamming the brake. Everyone else was like 75%. They was like pushing it. So I think if you're slamming the brake with a template, you're gonna get random stuff.
Right.
You just look at the event. I think all the matches after the breaks, there was so much like different outcomes all the time. Yeah, we had golden breaks. The cue ball was getting flicked off the 9 in the middle or the side. Maybe it banked in the middle, which can happen now and again.
Yep.
But there were actually like matches where people were braking and running, but there were actually matches where no one could get a shot off the brake.
A lot of matches like that, actually.
So, Karl, from a player's perspective, if you were out there competing in an event like this, would you try to avoid the cue ball coming back through and hitting the 9? Or would you just kind of take your poison and say, hey, I might fluke it here and there and I might scratch in the side every once in a while? Or would you maybe hit it with like a little bit of low outside or something to try to get the cue ball back past the side pocket? Curious your thoughts of how you'd approach it.
I'd be hitting them as hard as I could because I felt I always had broke like that anyway. And I'd just be focusing on trying to, basically I'd be braking like Shane and Catcher, the same brake, trying to pot the 1 in the side as hard as possible. Because if I don't make, because the middles are so tight now, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
It was very much like the Moscone, but in the practice room, I actually went up to the table and I put a ball at like a funny angle. I was like, wow, that was brutal. So obviously the one going across really hard, and we've seen it a lot. If it just catches the first point, it's dinging and going out. So it's not easy to keep slamming that one ball in. It's actually not that easy.
Yeah.
So I think the way Shane does it, and I think what Catchy did this event, like he played Mario. He was 10-9 up, and at 10-9, he'd potted double the amount of balls on the break than Mario.
Right.
So if you're not making, I think they're doing it because if they're not making the 1, they got more chance of looking another ball in.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
So if the cue ball's
making
coming off
5
the
balls
side
on the
back
break.
towards the 9, yeah. But if the cue ball, which obviously in the final he broke terrible in the final.
Yeah. Surprising.
Yeah, totally left him in the final. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's what I do like about this break. And that's what JJ, we were talking the last night. We just think out of all the 9-ball breaks you could possibly do, I don't see there's another break better than this. I really don't.
Karl,
Go ahead, Joey. I was going to say, what's that middle ground for the soft break and the warnings? Because it's very arbitrary. It's tough to judge. Guys are trying to finesse it, and then you got guys like Mario and Kachi who, they're going deep in events, and Shane's, are going deep in events. Power breaking, but there's a lot of guys, like Niels, who were kind of just, towing the line a little bit.
Yeah, I mean Niels was soft breaking. If you look at the best players in the world, and we've all watched them, we know how powerful they can all break, right?
Yep.
I think Sanchez is the only player where the way he breaks is like the acceptable speed. I think anything under what he's doing is a soft break. You know what I mean?
How do you
how do you police that though?
Sanchez at every table said, that wasn't hard enough.
Yeah.
No, obviously it's very difficult to police, and this has been suggested. It's not like it's not unnoticed. It's just obviously the 3-point rule, does that start to get a bit messy on TV? I just don't think that's ever going to work. But actually, when Niels got warned in the very last match, the 3-point rule break, he did actually foul break that as well. I just think the referees probably don't 100% have the same eyes as a pool player. So, like a pool player knows when it's a bit borderline. It's a bit like, but some of the referees might make a few mistakes if they're hitting it a bit too thin. The one.
Yeah, got to know the
So it's
difference.
still a grey area. I think what needs to happen is I think the pool players need to stop fucking around and just break hard.
Is that going to be the new Karl Boys hat that you're going to be wearing? You're going to be the one calling the foul at 10-10 and call the
Yeah,
soft
that's what an
break and give them
ambassador
ball in
does.
hand? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, listen, I know what you mean. It's such a grey area,
Yeah.
but Niels can break hard. Everyone can break hard.
Break hard.
And obviously,
Break.
Shane, Mario, Catchy, they were break. Why don't just break like that? Why is a pool player always having to be borderline with everything?
Yeah.
Hey, Karl, do you think so? I kind of find it interesting. I saw a comment of yours online on one of the complaining posts, and you're like, "Can anybody here even run a rack?" And it's like every event there's all this complaining. Every matchroom event, I should say, there's all this complaining, and it seems like there's some controversy that comes up every single time. And do you think that's more a product of people who are just have seen the fact that Matchroom's willing to change things and kind of throwing out suggestions, or the fact that you guys are doing something right in bringing this to so many people, or it's just a bunch of complainers? Like, what do you think's going on there?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it's obviously social media for a start. No matter what you do, someone will moan. But I think there's a lot of I don't know, maybe like people who play pool who they don't really know the ins and outs of the game. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, obviously, the break, for instance, when they're breaking from there, the reason why that's been brought in, that break, is obviously so it's not as predictable. So I went to Singapore and Kopinyi beat Aranas in the final, right? For 5 days I was there covering the full event. The one ball was on the spot, and they just soft break the full event.
Soft break it every time. Every time.
If any of you watch that event in Singapore, right? The wing ball went in every break, soft break. It was like the most painful, numbing thing I've ever seen in my life. I don't think there might have been a safety shot all week. It was just like pathetic. So obviously this break, the reason why I like this break is because you can pot the one in the side, but you can so easily miss it. So I think Catchy, who didn't get off to the best of starts in the final, missed a couple of balls, your timing goes on your Q arm, and then he started making a mess of the break.
Yeah.
So I like the fact that there is a skill, and I know what you're saying, Mike, because we obviously discussed it on Facebook about Niels' break. But if you look at his last break, a couple of balls sort of hit another couple of balls, so they didn't go up table. It was probably a hair soft still from how hard he could really break, and he still missed a one in the side. The idea is you're trying to pot the one in the side. That's it.
Yeah. So you think he just hit it wrong?
So
he hit it.
Yeah,
may have been a little bit sluggish. The rack itself
maybe have been a bit sluggish,
but still
he
impacted it as much as anything.
Yeah, because if you know a rack in that event let's say 3 events, let's say if you get to the semi-finals and 3 racks out of all your matches, there might be a slight chance of a bit of a slug rack. Just break harder.
Yeah.
Especially in that spot.
View on it. Well, especially Hill as well, by the way.
Yeah. Well, that's a lot on the breaks and the format. I want to talk about some of the players, Karl. What were some guys who came out this week who surprised you that maybe you didn't expect them to have this kind of run? I mean, I know this is the Masters, this is the elite of the elite, and it really was a great field. But for me, there was a lot of surprises from guys in this event. I want to get your thoughts.
Surprises. I think. I liked the fact that James Aranas had a deep run, but we know obviously he's a great player. A little bit unlucky to lose in the end. But obviously, we need a top Filipino showing up, don't we? Because obviously it's a popular game over there, and obviously the issue with Orcolo, and obviously some of the Filipinos are not all travelling, but he seems to be the player along with Johan Chua, but I think he was at the games, right? Yeah, so, and obviously he weren't in the top 14 anyway. But I think obviously we need that Filipino travelling around, so it's good to see him having a run. But I think obviously overall, there was a lot of emphasis on like Filler and Shaw and Sanchez and Shane doing well, but it's like no one's shocked to see Niels beat Filler.
Right.
You know what I mean? There was only 16 players in the event. Obviously Cole beat Shaw 9-1. Yeah, maybe a little bit of a shock to the scoreline, but I don't know. I think is there any real massive shocks?
Well, I mean, if you were betting on Filler against Niels, it was a little bit of a surprise. I mean, I don't think anyone's questioning what Niels' abilities are, though. And he's been there many times. I think that was more the argument that I saw a lot of online. But was there any player in particular who maybe disappointed you, throughout the event, who maybe you expected to see more from?
I thought Shaw looked a little bit out of sorts. I'm not saying he had loads of time. He looked a little bit out of sorts at the World Championships. He lost to Mora in a bit of a bad match in the TV arena at the Worlds. I don't really know what's going on with him. He said he's been practicing loads. I said, well, maybe you're practicing too much. Maybe it's not really your style. Maybe he's off it a little bit. Obviously, he's losing some tough matches, so that's not easy.
Yeah,
you I don't know. You just short. Jason seems to do well in America in them sort of events, doing like Turning Stone and all that. But at the minute in the matchroom events, he's having an absolute nightmare.
Yeah. Well, he didn't really get a whole lot of opportunities. I mean, I think his first three shots were all jump shots. I think for Jason.
No, I know what you're saying. It's just like that match in particular is probably just the kind of role he's on. But I don't know.
I'm kind of surprised, Karl. I'm kind of surprised that you weren't surprised at the semifinalists, compared to the four names that you named, FSR, SVB, Filler, Shaw, not being in the semifinals. I don't think if you ask people to kind of fill out a bracket and predict the semifinal, I don't know that anybody would have had the semifinalists that we had. Not that any one of them couldn't have been there, but the combination.
Surely you'd pick Co. I mean, Co Pigny's got to be.
He was 20-1 to start with. Everybody was on that.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know who's doing the book. It's obviously something to do with England, but. Maybe just jump all over them prices.
I told you, now is the best time ever to make money betting pool because they have no idea what they're doing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, like freaking Coping, like one of the favourites, top 4 favourites in any pool tournament he plays in. Yeah. Guy's a beast, isn't he? But obviously, Sanchez played poor in the opening match. Yeah. So, what are you going to do?
Yeah, I don't think Victor looked very good in his even the match he won.
But in fairness, is Victor Zielinski a top player? Not yet. He's not.
No, not.
You don't think so, Karl?
But in the last
maybe not on the matchroom. Outside of a matchroom stage, you don't think
those are fighting words to Molina Mike, Karl.
No, I'm talking about Shane Van Bonen, Joshua Filler, Albin Ocean. Guys. Victor. Listen, all the potential in the world, but. He's not the top player yet, is he? We can't just keep calling every pool player the top player. This is the other big issue. Everyone wants to keep talking about every pool player as they're a top pool player. Yeah, I'm talking about Shane, Filler, Albin, Coping.
All guys who went out in the first round, by the way, or the second round. Yeah.
Coping won the event. I said Coping.
Hey, Karl, this reminds me. We have a little Patreon, and we do a question of the day, and we had a guest come in, and I think it'll be released Wednesday. But the question of the day was about the Hall of Fame, and it somehow kind of went into this conversation about what do you need to be considered for the Hall of Fame. So, like, what players out there under 40 years old would be a lock for the Hall of Fame. And Molina made the comment that FSR, just the year he had last year, has to be in the Hall of Fame. And I kind of argued that a little bit. Not that it wasn't an amazing year.
Look at Mike.
But
look at Michael.
I believe that Hall of Fame has to have longevity. Like, you have to do this over a period of time. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on it. Like, is there kind of like something that says, okay, he won a world championship and he won another major event. So yes, this person's a Hall of Famer. What are your thoughts
you're making
about
an argument for Karl now?
There you go. Yeah.
No, I mean, obviously, I don't know the full criteria. Obviously, Mike does, but I suppose you can't just keep putting loads of pool players in just because they've won a world title. Exactly, because 100%. For starters, there's too many world championships, isn't there? So it's like, at some point, I've got frigging one. Do you know what I mean? So
I said, it's like, geez, now we got to consider.
So, no, but I mean,
anybody can get it, right?
No, but Well, obviously, I don't know. I think, I mean, obviously, yeah, I mean, he's won the World Nine Ball Championship, US Open Nine Ball Champion. How many people have done that?
Yeah.
But all these events are going to start
Tricky.
to be way took them over, like the World Nine Ball, like the U.S. Open. It seems to be like there's already a changing of the prestige of it. Not that it wasn't a great event before, but the World Nine Ball in Qatar versus what Matchroom is doing is apples and oranges, night and day for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the World Championships when it was in Qatar was like a horror show. It was like so bad, honestly. It really was so bad. Obviously now, I think obviously it's still early days, but I think you can sort of feel it and all. When whoever wins the World Championships or the US Open, it feels different. Just publicity, and there's obviously more events now. So when you go to the events, they're the ones getting the features. Do you know what I mean? Sky want to speak to them. They want to take them out for the day and do the feature. So it's definitely got a different feeling. So, Mike, you don't think FSR's Hall of Famer?
Right now, no, I would not. I would not. I mean, it's a world championship and a U.S. Open 9-ball championship, but and he dominated a year, absolutely dominated a year. That's great. That's not Hall of Fame to me. You have to do more over a longer period of time. You have to have those titles, and if he plays 6 more years and wins 2 more majors, then to me, even though he only won 2 majors in 6 more years, that now the whole I hate the term body of work, but whatever, that it would look good to me, right? But it doesn't look good to me in 1 year.
A major like the Whirlpool Masters?
One year gets you Player of the Year, right? 1 year gets you Player of the Year, doesn't get you in the Hall of Fame. What did you just call me on that, Joey?
I said a major like the Whirlpool Masters.
No.
Carl, you don't know this, but this is a major pain point here for Mike Panozzo. When we talk about majors, he has a very strict criteria for what a major is.
Well, okay, I think Karl would agree with it because Karl, he was just talking about, people's careers and Hall of Fames and how you measure stuff like that. And everybody's a world champion and all this stuff. There's got to be, he was talking about who's a top player. How everybody talks about everyone's a top player. Victor's a top player, and he's got a different criteria for top player, right? And same to me with majors. You have to get beyond just really good tournaments with a lot of the guys in them to be a major. Yeah. Major should be something special, and a major to me is what gets someone into a Hall of Fame. Okay, if you've got, like tennis, we talked about this before, 4 established majors that happen every year. Now, over the course of a career, majors is what gets you into the Hall of Fame. Not winning a bunch of tour events, not winning Turning Stone 17 times or anything like that. It's how many majors did you have to add to that, right? And if you didn't have them, great career. But if you want a really exclusive Hall of Fame, there's got to be that kind of line where there's great players who don't make it.
Mike, list the majors.
Well, see, it's weird now to me
here's because
of the 10-ball stuff and the 9-ball. Okay, now here's the way I would do it. Here's Mike's look at it. I would have the Triple Crown would be World 9-ball, World 10-ball, World 8-ball. That would be a Triple Crown, right? Majors would be 9-ball.
Got a chance of this fucking ring, then.
Huh? So majors, if you're going to have a World 9-ball tour, now you have your 9-ball majors. Okay. I would have the World 9-ball Championship, the U.S. Open. I still like the International, and I would pick some Asian. Hopefully, there would be a big Asian event. So now you're split geographically, right? And you have a major in that to me then would be 4 majors. I like the International because it's not a Matchroom event. I like one of the majors to not be run because. And we can get into this discussion another time too. I'd like to see these majors be a little different from one another some way. And I'd love to see the International go back to full double elimination all the way through.
Is that desire
that would be separate?
No
that would
chance.
Separate it, without making it different playing surfaces like tennis or whatever. It would separate one tournament from the next. Okay, if you have 4 identical blueprint tournaments for Matchroom as your 4 majors, then it's just a name. The only difference is the name.
Just put them on Valley tables while you're at it too, Mike.
A 9-foot valley? Sure.
Yeah. While you're at it, yeah.
No, you agree or disagree, Karl?
I suppose it's all down to opinion, isn't it? Because everyone's going to have a different view. I think the biggest issue is the fact that there's so much different pool games and tours and all this. I suppose over the years, everyone's going to say, "Oh, well, I prefer that, and I want that, and this should be in, this should be out." So I don't know. I still would put the Masters in, just because over the years, if you look at the people that have won the Masters, again, it's pretty much all the top boys have won it anyway.
I think
Werner de
Ah,
Werner de Reger.
I said pretty much,
well,
but he's not got a Hall of Fame career, has he?
well, I think Pinoza's argument with it, it's invitational, it's single
invitational, 16
elimination.
players, single elimination. Can't
No.
players.
It used to be invitational. Not anymore. It's not.
Two wild cards now. You got to earn it. I get that.
Yeah.
No.
I
but,
get it.
Yeah.
But if you're on the tour,
I get it.
if you're on the tour and you finish in the top 14 after Worlds, you're in. So
I still don't like a 16-player single elimination tournament for a major.
no. What I'm saying is, I'm not saying if you win the Masters, you're all a Hall of Famer. But like say Ralph Suke has won the World Championships, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, he's won the Masters 6 times. Ralph never won the US Open, right?
Yes.
He did?
Yeah.
Somebody told me he didn't. I
He
thought he
beat
did.
Dogs.
Yeah, somebody last week told me
Yeah.
that he never won it. I said, I'm sure he's won it.
He beat it.
Yeah, so somebody like Ralph, you're not just putting him in because he won the US Open, the World, are you? Because Sanchez has done that. You still got to look at his 6 World Masters.
Yeah, that to me
well.
is add-on stuff. To me, you start with
Complimentary.
the World Championship, you start with the U.S. Open, you say, plus, he won all these events, okay? But if he hadn't won the World Championship and the U.S. Open, he can take his 6 World Masters and do all he wants with them. He's not getting into my Hall of Fame.
And, also, obviously, in 10 years' time from now, this is what I mean. I suppose it's all opinions and stuff, because in 10 years from now, you might sit here, if you're still with us, Mike, and you might say, "Oh, well, that's a big event now," or "That's a lot bigger."
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Sure, there'll be big events that come and go, and that's why part of this discussion of majors, it gets a little bit tricky, because if you're going to have 4 majors, for a Grand Slam or however you want to call it, even in 9, just if it's 9-ball, all 4 of those have to be every year, right? You can't have something pop in one year and pop out, and then another one's in its place that year, whatever. You want some continuity. And that's what establishes credibility for a sport. It's what establishes history for a sport, all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of value more to just arguing about what you call a major. They have purpose.
Yeah.
Let's get you out of here on this, Karl. We're about 5 months into the year. I want to get your thoughts on who you think, or up to this point, who's your Moscone 5 for Team Europe?
Filler, Shaw, FSR. So that's 3. I think somebody random's going to get in this year, actually.
Like?
I don't know. I just think someone will sneak through. Maybe the first Polish player.
I like it. The guy who you said isn't a top player, and Victor maybe.
You got 2 more picks.
Yeah.
No, top player.
Yeah.
Top, double top.
Albin.
That's 5 already, ain't it?
I'm gonna
Filler,
say-
FSR.
No, that's 4.
Is it?
It's 4.
isn't it?
Filler,
He didn't pick,
FSR, Shaw, Albin.
So the entire
I'm
team.
going to go for Zielinski. I'll pick Zielinski, the Polish player.
Do you think he's got what it takes to, have a deep run of a career, or like start to live up to expectations in the next, let's say, few years?
I mean, yeah, he's talented. Obviously, he's got age on it. How old is he?
Is he like early 20s? 20,
I didn't hear.
22?
Who did you say? Who did you say, Karl?
Zelensky.
Yeah.
Oh,
Zielinski.
yeah, he's a young guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's still young, and it's hard to say. I mean, obviously, Sanchez, look what he,
That's-
sort of did come on and burst onto the scene. It's hard to say, isn't it? Obviously, like, you can't, obviously he had a bit of a nightmare at the Masters, but so what? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because it's not a major. So what's the
I
difference?
think
Well,
he
yeah.
probably is. Yeah.
Well, it's like
It's not major.
Fran was hanging around the top 8 for years. Top 8, top 16.
Yeah.
And Filler
Yeah.
just kind of knocked the door down and just started winning everything. But I don't know. I could see either side of it, I guess.
Yeah.
So here's an even better question, or a tougher question. Who's your pick for Team Europe captain?
Oh,
And when's that going to happen?
everyone keeps asking. Nobody knows. I think no. Do you know what I think it's happened with the captaincy? I think over the years you sort of needed an announcement, didn't you? Because obviously Matchroom and the World Nine Ball and all this, the tour, nothing was really happening. So it was a big deal, wasn't it? Naming the captain and like press release.
It's called marketing.
But I think now when you, but I think if you look at it now, there's that much going on. It's probably like not as big a deal as it once was.
No doubt.
So I think it's kind of like, well, the Moscone is on. We know that. When do we announce the captains? It'll get announced at some point, obviously. But I don't know who's in the running or anything.
It would be your pick just out of clear blue.
I don't buy that for a minute.
Honestly, on my children's life right here and the pictures, nothing's been said.
Yeah, I believe you.
Now I believe you.
Yeah, nothing, honestly.
Yeah.
Nothing, honestly. I don't know. If they're struggling, is it not just Alex and JJ again? Who do you pick?
I thought Alex was out after last week.
Alex, I know he said he retired, but I'm just saying, I'm sure if there's a phone call, he's not going to turn down the money, is he? Obviously, Niels wants to play, but he's obviously a candidate. Obviously, Appleton's name gets mentioned, but how healthy is he going to be for something like that?
A lot of stress.
Maybe this year's not quite the right time for him because obviously his health's more important.
What do you feel about Niels' potential for slipping in there for Team Europe? You think that's still on the table? You think it's a possibility?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, obviously, because I think once somebody has a good run in an event, they seem to go on one, don't they? I think because he got to the quarterfinals of the World Championships, and then he's obviously come in and got to the semis. Obviously, the UK Open's just around the corner. He's in the World Cup of Pool, Spanish Open. It's like that time now where is he going to continue the run? So I think he could sneak in, but if I was him, I'd just be saying, give me the captaincy. I won't really be bothered about playing.
It's easier money.
He's a different beast, though, isn't he? So, I mean, he could get in, but I don't know. It's like, who do you pick for America? If it's not JJ, who is it?
Marina Mike.
It's a tough call in the U.S., I think. I don't think there's as many obvious picks. I mean, I've heard people talk about, guys who they have a lot of respect for, like a Tony Robles, someone like that. It's a tough call in the U.S., I think. And I like JJ. I like what he's done, and I like his, but is Emily going to allow JJ to be captain again, or is she going to pull him in like she did with you?
Yeah, does the player ambassador kind of rule that out for captaincy?
And all the commentary, all the pundit role, things like that. I know that was part of the reason that you were no longer vice captain, and they did away with vice captains. But is JJ coming close to falling into that same camp in the Matchroom stable?
Yeah, possibly. I know that's what's cost me the job anyway. So
You're too good behind the mic, man. What are you going to do?
No, I mean, I don't mind. I mean, obviously, it is a different role, isn't it? So when I look at JJ and Alex anyway, I've not really gone down the coaching route and all that. It sort of doesn't really interest me.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised to see JJ there again.
Yeah.
But Robles, he wouldn't be a bad shout, actually.
Yeah.
Well, because obviously you want someone who's got like respect of people, and obviously, you want him to be a nice guy as well. So he'd probably fit the bill okay.
Yeah. Well, Karl, hey, we really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us. I told you before the show I'm heading over on holiday to Scotland, and you're like, why would you do that?
Yeah, no offense to Scottish people.
It's kind of fun for someone from the United States to head over there, and I've never been to the UK at all. Never
Is
been
it
to
the
Europe.
Scottish Open this week?
Well, no, I missed it by like a
next
week.
week.
It's crazy. I was telling Melina,
wow.
I'm thinking about going to it's in Glasgow. I think about 45 to 60 minutes away. I'm thinking about going down there and checking out the place. But yeah, so thanks so much for coming on, Karl. We always love having you on the show.
Definitely.
Great insights as always. And we look forward to talking to you again soon, man.
No worries. Thank you.
Thanks,
buddy.
Awesome.
Oh, that was pretty good, boys.
Good stuff. Yeah, no, he's always entertaining. He's always really honest, and he's got great perspective. So yeah, always interesting talking to him.
Yeah, at first I thought it was a good idea to go down the rabbit hole of talking about majors, but then at some point I was like, wait a minute, we spent way too much time talking on that. And from Karl's perspective, he's not going to be too critical of. Well, actually, he's going to look at something like the World Pool Masters and call it a major because that's what they're calling it. So, over at Matchroom, but I don't know. I agree that it's not a major.
I think Karl says a lot more, is a lot more candid than
he is.
Yeah. He's not just company line.
True, but he's got to be diplomatic too.
Yeah.
I mean, that event, I agree, 16-player field, single elimination. Yeah, look at the players that were knocked out in the first round or the first couple rounds in this event. We talked about the big
entire European team. Didn't make it out of the first
round. All
round.
the ones he said he would have on the Moscone Cup. So
I thought it was interesting that he went right to Jason and Albin, and I'm thinking, really? But
well, I think that goes to show what you see out of Jason every single year, right? Like last year, he struggled.
At the Moscone Cup.
Right.
At the Moscone Cup.
Last year, he struggled for a lot of the year. It seemed like.
Cup. Yeah.
It didn't seem like he was in gear at all. And then he has the international, right? He won the international. Wait, is that right?
Yeah.
Wins the international and goes in pretty hot and played well at Moscone Cup. And he's always going to be there, I think. So, yeah.
Well, he thrives in that environment, and if you continue to step up over and over and over again, it's going to be tough to keep you off that team. I think Josh is for sure locked. Mike mentioned it last year when it comes to, it being in the UK, you got to have an English player. I mean, you got to have a guy, like Jason on the team as well, so, and I don't think anyone's threatening him there in that category, but I think there'll be a lot more guys shaking up. I think Francisco's about as good of a lock, but I think there's two picks that are pretty wide open, in my opinion.
And that's what makes it interesting is if a couple of new people get into that top three with FSR, then your two wildcard picks gets really interesting if you start lumping Albin and Jason and Federer and Filler and whoever else into a wildcard situation. Then it becomes a real different story.
Yeah, because you might have a few rookies on there, Mike, or at least two rookies. I would think
possibly. Possibly,
who just earn their way on there.
See it. I don't know.
Well, they're not gonna have a choice if they make it in the top three. Their hands are going to be tied no matter what.
Right.
So unless they go and pull a Tanya Hardin or something, I don't really see any other way. They're getting left out.
Yeah, we were seeing all the comments, guys, while we were talking to Karl. We just didn't have quite the real estate at some point, and we wanted to make sure to get his comments in. But like Jerry Stucker with the comment, does past Cup play auto qualify somebody for future years? In the case of Jason Shaw, I think it does. I think
I don't think it's auto qualified, but I think it's something that weighs heavily.
Yeah. So he's from his being a UK player and him being the personality that they love to have in the Moscone Cup makes him a pretty natural pick for wildcard. But that's gonna run its course too.
Yeah, but what he brings to the team, I mean, there's some intangibles there. Just the emotion and the leadership that he brings to that team. Even if he's not in top form, you're dealing with races to 5, and he can help get you past the finish line. So I see him there for quite some time. I think he would have to have a terrible year or something major happen where, they don't include him sometime in the next 5 years. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, probably.
What are your thoughts on the event ended, Mike?
I thought the final was I was hoping for a better final. Obviously, I mean we had a couple of great hill matches leading up to the final, and from about halfway through the final to the end, it just kind of went. You know, Kachi wasn't getting. You know, Ko was getting a couple of rolls. Kachi wasn't getting anything on the break, and then he was just missing shots and looked kind of like he was mentally out of sync from the halfway point on. So the second half of that match to me
Well,
wasn't all that
it's
compelling. Although I was happy as can be for Cole because I love that kid. I think he's a great player and just a great guy. And it was great to see him win. And he played really. He got some roles, but he played really well too. Yeah. It was not the most compelling final, but I still loved it.
I think it's hard when you battle to get to that spot, and then the thing that's been such a pillar in your game in the break abandons you, and then on top of that, it's like every time the guy makes a mistake, or maybe not every time, but a high percentage of the time, every that Cole made a mistake, now
Wasn't
he's
getting
getting
punished.
hooked.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you know what I mean, and it's kind of like, well, what do I got to do here?
Kind of
You know,
reminds me of that world championship with Ko and Shane, right? Where every time Ko wasn't it Ko and Shane? Every time Ko
Did we know
missed,
this was
Shane
going
had
to come up, Mike?
gosh, that drove me crazy that day.
teed
I'll
up.
never forget that.
It's like throwing the word majors in there. Just talk to Joey about the Shane Van Bowen
Do
and
I bring
Co.
that up a
World
lot?
Championship.
Yeah,
Not as
that's
much
part
as
of
super billiard
coming
expert, but
around.
it's up there.
Hey, I'm really excited to see James Aranis back out playing.
Yeah.
His what he showed in this event is he's capable of beating anybody and being right there at the end. And we saw it for a while here in the States with Roy's Basement and seeing him play there, and we just knew what he was capable of doing. But to see him have an event like he had here, I think that's something that could springboard him into some really good things the rest of this year. I'm excited to see it.
What
So
do
I
you say,
did
Mike?
think, well, no, I think Aranis, it was great to see him out there. Look forward to seeing him in more of the events and look forward to see him love to see him make a deep run in an open tournament, to show where he's at. But yeah, it was great. It was great watching him. Yeah.
I think it's all about it's all about the mental game with James. I think he, maybe in some eyes he lived up to expectations. For me, he exceeded them. And not having a lot of stage time on the match, on Matchroom's platform, he really made the best of his opportunity. And the reality is, when you start off, this is your introduction, and you got to play against FSR and you come away with the win. I mean, I know what the Francisco being as crisp as we had seen before, but just to get that W was pretty inspiring. That match with Ko, he looked like he belonged for sure. He did not look like the stage was too big for him. That was the most comfortable that I had seen him, and to be honest, I was pretty surprised that he did look as fluid in that match as he
Yeah,
did.
he looked really
So
comfortable in that match.
he looked sharp, man.
It
I'd be
says a
excited to
lot.
see.
We talk about the matchroom stage and how, even players like Fedor Gorst haven't really stepped up on the matchroom stage and played the way they're capable of. And for,
Right.
Double D to go there and do what he did in this event, I think is pretty telling that he's here and he's ready mentally to play the game.
Yeah, for sure. He was very when we had interviewed him, he was very open when it came to his thoughts on whether or not he belonged in this event from the beginning. And he had some apprehension even to play. So to come in there and do what he did was just remarkable. And I hope he continues it. The UK Open's coming up pretty soon, so I hope he has a great run as well. You know, he can dance with anybody. It's
You,
just a matter of him getting comfortable.
you see Rhonda's comment there. Is that correct? Does he have the same type of situation that
Yes.
Orcola has?
Yes.
But now it almost doesn't matter as much because of all the events that are popping up, like the UK Open, like events in Asia, etc., where he can still be on that matchroom stage and still compete, right? But not be able to come to the U.S. So
Yeah,
hopefully
no,
he
it's
takes
still too
advantage
bad.
of
I
that.
mean, yeah, he'd love to be in the U.S. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Which reminds me, I got that second interview that me and Mike did with James. I gotta drop that. I was supposed to drop it the other day, but that's got where Mike asked him specifically that question. So we'll get that posted on the page pretty soon. But yeah, there was, what, to starting off the event leading up to it and being deflated a little bit, or not a little bit, a lot, with Federer not being able to make it, to having the Masters end up being what it was, just shows like where we're at in pool today, and the drama that can be had, the level of players that are out there, and then of course the production by Matchroom as well. I think there would have been a lot of opportunity to kind of be disappointed throughout, but from the amount of players to the length of the races to even things like the Golden Break that we talked about earlier. I mean, I got nothing negative to
Yeah.
say about it, to be honest with
I,
you.
I think from a viewer perspective, this event offers something a little different, right? Because you're getting good sized races where you get to
Yeah.
see, for somebody who likes pool and enjoys watching the nuances of the game, you get to see long races. But at the same time, it's not like this never ending tournament where you have so many players and so many rounds, right? So it gives you a different flavor. And I
Well,
think
it's
that's one
it's
of the things that's
it's
most appealing, one of my favorite events. So
well, it's marquee matchups from for every of it. So you're going to see every match that there is, and you start with marquee matchups. So you're not waiting for a tournament to get to that point, and then someone gets upset along the way, and you don't get the matches you wanted anyways. Here, you get the matches you want, like from from the opening break,
yeah.
and that's what makes it such good television and such good pool.
Yeah.
What do you think out of the players that are on there that played in the Masters? Who would you pick, or who would you back to, go on a run this year?
Wow, good question. I mean, there's 16 really good names in there, so picking one out to go on a runs.
Yeah.
I'd like to see Ko go on a run. I'd really love to see him back to kind of that, near dominating type of form. He's never really left the top five to me, but I'd like to see him do that. Win two or three titles and be in a couple of finals or two or three Final Fours, whatever it is. Love to see him make a run.
I think he will. Melina and I talked about this on the show last week, where if you think about it, the Taiwanese players, along with the Chinese players and some other Asian players, really didn't travel much during the pandemic at all. I don't even think they were allowed to, and so you didn't see him out there playing much. And even when Ko first started coming back out, all the Ko's, right, Lil Ko, and they came out to Vegas and played in some events. They just didn't seem as sharp as they did
Yeah.
pre-pandemic, right? But now I think this is something that's really going to help him build confidence. And we already know he's a world-class player, one of the top players. You could say top for him. Okay, maybe not for
Yeah,
Phil.
yeah,
You
yeah.
could say
Karl
top
would agree
for
with you
Phil.
on that.
Okay, and one other thing that I think is kind of interesting with this event, the way the tables are going now for Matchroom, getting the tables tighter and tighter, it favors the Taiwanese players. I've never been to Taiwan, but from the players that I've talked to that have, every table in that place is super tight, right? Every table in that country is 4-inch or less pockets, and that's
Yeah.
the way they train. That's the way they play. And so when they come over to a Matchroom event, you got those real tight side pockets, which I'm telling you, those things are so tight. I don't think
Oh
people
man,
realize it. Like Kachi shoots a ball into the side. I forget what match it was I'm watching, and he shoots a ball into the side. And even after it didn't go in, they showed the replay in slow motion, and the whole time the ball's tracking towards the side. I'm like, that's in. It's going in. It's like I couldn't believe it to watch it in slow motion not go in. I'm like, that ball goes in the side every single time,
Yeah.
but those pockets are super tight. The Taiwanese are dialed in to that pocket size, and that bodes well for Ko moving forward in events like this.
Well, and I'm also looking forward to seeing the Chinese back in action. And we heard Mike. We may see a
Easy, Mike.
Shashing Wu
Easy,
a
Mike. Yeah,
Wu sighting. There
yeah.
might be a couple of sightings of some of the top Chinese players coming up soon, which would be great.
I thought Karl had to go. Now he's commenting. We should have kept him in here.
Listen, if I think we're going to start seeing Kachi just continue to be in that Final Four range and on
Really,
in the next few months. I love his all around game.
got you
From
for
his
Moscone.
well, I mean, listen, you can the way he was jumping the ball, his kicking, his safety play, uh, his jump safes. The pressure moments he was able to execute. I know he came up short in the final, but that kid's game, along with that titan of a break,
Yeah.
he's going to be a threat.
Well, he
And he
better
just seems to be getting stronger.
He's got to
he
qualify.
better start working, because so far he's won the World 10 ball and finished second in the World Masters and got zero ranking points out of
And
both of
look at
those.
Carl's comment there.
Zero.
Kachi picked for my team. There you go.
He's
Yeah.
got to qualify. Okay, I don't see him being.
I don't think
selected.
no. I thought that before. I think that he's starting to get to a point where he's on the
Depends on who's
upswing where
captain.
Look,
well,
I love
Depends
the
on who's
guy's
you
game.
captain.
you keep on performing the way he's done since the beginning of the
Well, then you're going
year.
to be there in points.
There's a difference though. Okay, there's a difference. You remember when he played in the World Cup of pool, and like him and his partner didn't even like fist bump or didn't even
Here we
high
go
five.
again. Here we go again.
I'm
Let
just
me,
saying. And I
Mike. Can you
commented
get us?
online,
Can
and
you get us
Kachi's,
Kachi, Mike? Can you get us Kachi on the show?
I can't make it that
I'm
day.
not going to make book on him showing up.
Yeah.
I can't,
He may
I
be
can't make
late.
it that day. But listen, I'm telling you, there's the team component, the team aspect of it. Until
Agreed.
he proves that he can be a part of the team and help to uplift the team, which I'm not saying he couldn't, but he just gives off that vibe that he's more of an individual player, right?
Yep,
Uh,
gives off that
Once again,
vibe that he's playing. That he's playing better than a few of the names that Carl picked. I'll tell you that.
yeah.
Today,
Right
right
now, for
now, he's playing that kind of pool. And I think he's only going to get better and better, because if you're going to play like that, as much as we've all talked about the table and the side pockets and how tight it is and this and that, and he's still performing the way that he
he's
was,
an animal, no doubt
you know,
about it.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, if he does not qualify, then you and I have action on whether he
Whether
gets
he's a
selected
wild
or not.
card,
Yeah.
it's a good call. That's a
well,
good
I
one.
wouldn't go. Listen, I'm not mad at my money that much, but yeah. If you want to have the debate whether or not he's more deserving than some of the other names, come
We
November,
get to do that
October,
again this year.
I'll be glad to have that. Well,
After last year, you're going to call somebody out. After last year, after the beating you took last year, you're going to call somebody out.
well, I've apologized since then, privately, and now we all learn, right? Handle things more diplomatically. But if you're gonna say that you're picking from today, I'm including that kid on my team the way he's playing.
Yeah.
I think that he's showing
He's
that
playing well.
he's playing that great under some bright lights, boys, and I think the future is looking better. I mean, listen, I know he's already he's been in a final, Mike, of a U.S. Open before, right? If I'm not mistaken, he's been in a semifinal of a World Championship as well. So we know what he's able to do now. He's a two-time World 10 ball champion, going in a final of a World Pool Masters in a very tough event. He looked dominant in this event, with the exception of the second half of that final.
Right.
He looked different than everybody else for me out there.
I know one thing going forward. If he's sitting in the other chair, I don't know how much fist pumping I'm doing if I make the 9 on the break. I may take that match off.
Yeah. Well, hey guys, we're gonna get out. Go ahead, Joey.
I just want to let people know one thing we do most days. We'll go online and go to Patreon, and we'll put up a question of the day. We've already done a few this week. I have a few scheduled since I'm headed to Scotland. We have guests come on. One of our Patreon supporters, Matt Poland, came on, did one. Melissa Helen, Patrick Neal. Yeah, occasionally Panozzo will do one, but always talking about interesting.
Me and Mike got one coming up.
Yeah, always talking about some interesting content, and usually some things that maybe we're a little more free to speak about on there than we do on this show. So you never know what you'll get sometimes. But if you want to check it out, it's patreon.com/doggin it. And on there, you can support us and help make this podcast better. So thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll catch up with you soon. I'm headed to Scotland.
Mike, thanks for getting Karl on.
Where you going, Joey?
Yeah, we'll do some more stuff, I'm sure, this week. We want to thank all of our sponsors as well who help us out, and Joey, wish you safe travels, and maybe there's a chance you may get some stuff while you're out there as well. So
I'm bringing my equipment.
Nice.
Go enjoy the trip. You guys enjoy the rest of your day.
Oh, I forgot to tell you. When I get out there, I got to go check in. This is a company thing. I earned this trip from, meeting my goals. When I go to check in is in the billiard room. I don't know what that
Really?
means. I'm really curious. It might be snooker tables. It might be
Boy,
a
there's
billiard.
gonna be
I don't know.
gonna be 4
You're
guys sitting in
hey,
there waiting for you to walk in, Joey.
you're getting robbed, buddy. Trust me.
Yeah.
We'll see you guys later.
100%.